Hey everybody, welcome to the R&R Show, episode 91. Let's go.
And hello, friends. I'm Ruel. We've got our guests and hosts all over the place here. We've got Ray, we've got Chris, and we've got special guests. Oh, there's the balloons. Yes, celebratory balloons in the Nook. We've got Helaina from Burnt Island and Kids Table Board Gaming. And also, Chris, you want to introduce your Nook buddy?
We have Yuval Grinspun, designer of How to Save a World. And also my neighbor. Very clearly, I said this in the pre-show, and I'll say it again on the actual show. My neighbor and not my friend.
Folks, you can hear all about that story by clicking on the links below for the extended edition, where we do all kinds of silliness and whatnot. But today, we're here for our top 12 deck builders with the boards. You can click on the links as well to see our previous R&R episode where we talk about pure deck builders. And we wanted to expand on this list with Helaina and Yuval and talk about some more great games that add deck building to a larger game, something that has a board or, other elements to it. Helaina, Yuval, how y'all doing? Everything okay? You've got something going on right now that is sort of big and happening, right?
Yeah. I'm amazing. We have a Kickstarter campaign running right now for How to Save a World, which is Yuval's game. And it's already doing really well. We're pretty close to funding, which is exciting. It's the first day today. And I couldn't have asked for anything more. The campaign is amazing. The backers are amazing already. And we're having a great time with it. So.
Awesome. Yes, folks, be sure to click the links below. You'll be able to get to the campaign there. And why don't we get into this list? And Chris, we're going to have you kick things off, my friend.
Sure. Yeah. I think we should talk a little bit. We said this in the pre-show too, but I want to preface it. Like you mentioned, deck building with a board, there has to be another component to deck building. And also we're talking about specifically deck building. We're not including any bag building in here, and we're not including any sort of pool building. That is right out. Richard does not want that. And we are not allowed to put it on the list. And so maybe that'll be another list down the line. Who knows? Yeah. Maybe we can separate it that way. But I think I'm really excited to talk about my number 12. Well, our number 12. We each got 2 picks because it's a top 12. This is a game that I've talked about a few times on this channel that I think Richard will expect and potentially, hopefully, ridicule me for, so I can keep my streak going. And that is the game Trains.
I knew it.
Did you know this? Yeah. Okay, because I didn't tell you this before.
I was like, which games was Chris going to bring? Yeah, Trains was on there.
Trains is for sure on there. I just love Trains. I don't even care about the theme Trains, but I love the game Trains. Trains is a game that I think appeared on this R&R show when we talk about games that killed other games. For me, this just ridiculously demolishes Dominion for the express purpose that it has a board. It's like Dominion with a board. It's Dominion with an additional board element. We get both of us in here.
Yeah,
for our little frame. Look how cute we look. Look how cute we look. Trains is really like, it blew me away. Like, this should not be fun. It's a boring looking board. It's a very boring, bland theme of cards. Like, all the cards, they're very similar. If you're not a train enthusiast, it's like, oh, this one section of the train and this other thing. I was like, I don't care. I don't know these references. But it's so good. Like you start somewhere on the board, and you just having the ability to earn points, not through just deck building, which you can also do, but through like clever route building. And I like that you're managing both, like creating your engine so that you can buy more cards, and then creating your engine so that you can navigate across the map. And those two things don't always intertwine. And that's the reason why I find this so much more compelling than Dominion, because of that dual management system. In Dominion, you kind of have like your buys and your actions, and here you're spreading out across versus trying to get better cards, and finding that balance, I think, is really exciting. And I think this is a game that doesn't get a lot of love, and so I will continue to love up upon it. It's Trains. Has anybody here played Trains? Have we played Trains?
I played Trains. I don't know if I played with you.
I don't know if we did.
I played it a couple times. Like, I liked it. I thought it had potential, but it sort of it fell a bit short, and I'm wondering. But part of it was like, as you described, like the variety a little bit. Like a lot of cards seem the same, and I've never played. Like it has expansions. I have to believe it has expansions, and I've never played with the expansions. And I'm wondering if they actually bring the variety, because one of them, like the Dominion is
you have everything Dominion.
Well, I have a lot of them. Is like just the variety of cards, right? Like there's just a lot of variety versus in the base of Trains. I remember it being all very same.
Yeah. Well, I think that's I think base Trains versus base Dominion is the comparison to
that's
make.
Fair, right?
And so for me, that's what overshone. I mean, with the variability that like Dominion brings, for sure. And I think Trains didn't get the love of Dominion, and so doesn't have that like
that's
depth
possible,
of support. But I still love the base game as it is. Yeah.
And I mean, me personally, I love the theme. Like I like Trains, believe it or not.
You're in transit.
That's my daytime job, and so it's like, I would give it another go, especially if you had some expansions. But good choice. Yeah.
I absolutely love Trains, and Chris, I would highly recommend trying the expansion Rising Sun. It definitely adds more different types of cards, and also gives you. I don't know if this is in the base game, but where you can you're trying to complete different routes. Like they give you like special points if you get from one point to another, and it's a different map as well. Michelle and I we played the heck out of this game when we first got it. It was one of those games that just really hit a sweet spot. It's literally Ticket to Ride meets Dominion, right? It matches those two up. It's got the route building of Ticket to Ride with the deck building of Dominion, and it's funny because some of those base game cards are not that Rising Sun, Chris.
Not that one.
I have the expansion for it right here.
It's so much fun, and Richard, he has a different map here, and I know that they sold different map packs, and there's one that we had that actually it was geared towards 2 players, which we found really cool because it's a lot smaller map, so there's a lot more interaction. I absolutely love Trains. I'm so glad it was on my list. It was actually on my list, Chris, and I was hoping someone would pick it. So great choice, Chris. Great choice.
I knew I liked it for a reason, Ruel.
Yeah, I may not be in the nook, but we do have some weird tasting games. Yes.
Oh, you're in this nook right here. You'll always be in this nook right here.
The heart nook.
I think my computer will even show the love of the nook.
That's so perfect. Oh, I love it. Okay, as we continue the Love Fest here on the R&R Show, folks, let's go on to our number 11 game, which is going to fall to me. Now, this is a game that is actually not in my collection. I realized that when we put together the list, and I'm super bummed about it because I love this game. Like, this is an amazing game. It's our collective number 11, Tyrants of the Underdark. Now, for those who haven't played, this is a game set in the Dungeons and Dragons world, and the way, we just talked about Trains being a mashup of Ticket to Ride and Dominion. Tyrants of the Underdark is a mashup of Blood Rage and Dominion. So if you want area control and you want deck building, you are going to play Tyrants of the Underdark. It is brilliant. So like other deck builders, like Dominion, you start with your starting deck of 10 cards. There are different factions. You're going to choose one and then shuffle them up. And then as you go, you're going to use these. They 2 different currencies. Well, one is influence, which is basically your currency to buy cards in your deck. And the other is power, which is combat. You're going to, punch each other in the face and whatnot. Sending out your troops. Let me fast forward. Okay, there's the board there. You send out your troops, and you try to get the most troops in there to gain control. Now, there's only a limited amount of spots, so whoever has the most presence there will take control of that, and that's how you score points. However, the really cool thing in this game, you have spies. So you can send your spies out to any part of the board, and even if it's like part of the board is already filled up, you send your spies there, and you can totally take over. And it has another really cool thing that I love. My gosh, I absolutely adore this game. We talked about Valley of the Kings last 2 weeks ago on the R&R show, how there's that really cool entombing or, mechanism where you want to shed your cards or, trash them and take them out of your deck because that'll score you points, but you also lose that ability. So it's like that timing factor. Tyrants of the Underdark also has that. I think it's called promotion. So you can promote, get rid of your weaker cards, of course, but sometimes there's those big monster cards that you have that are doing a lot of damage, but you're like, ooh, maybe if I promote this one, it's going to be worth a ton of points at the end. So it's a really cool balancing act. I mean, I love everything about this game. It's Blood Rage using deck building, folks, it doesn't get much better than this. And that's why it's our collective number 11, Tyrants of the Underdark.
I haven't played this, but it's been on my list for ages to play.
I'm surprised, yeah.
Like, I think this would this would be so good for me. I think I would absolutely love it. I've heard such great things.
Yeah.
Has anybody here played it other than Ruel?
I'm sorry.
I haven't, and I'm kind of surprised because I'm a big D&D person, and I feel like I've played most D&D themed board games. So.
Yeah, the bummer about this, it was out of print for a long time, and I believe Gale Force 9 picked it up, and they recently reprinted it. But it was like a small print run. It's not totally readily available, and that's why I don't have a copy. I always play my buddy. I think it's my buddy Jeff that has a copy, and he has the expansion too. So I play that, but I'm looking at it like I need this in my collection, mainly because our friend Mike at the One Stop Co-op Shop with the video we're watching. He's playing a fan-based solo mode, and y'all know how much I love solo games. So, see, now I can play this. I have no excuse not to have this game in my collection anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I need Tyrants of the Underdark in my collection. It's so good. Again, if you haven't played it, folks, definitely highly recommend it. It's fantastic. Okay,
nice.
Let's move on to our number 10. Ray, we're going to turn it over to you.
All right. So our number 10 on our list is The Lost Ruins of Arnak. Yeah. Which is a game I'm a little too familiar with because I worked for CG for a while, right as like those two expansions were coming out. So I debated putting it on this list because I think I am arguably a little sick of it because I played it so much, but it has to have a space on this list. It is at this point it's going to become a classic deck builder with a board. So if you're unfamiliar, Lost Ruins of Arnak sets you and fellow players on the fictional island of Arnak that you are trying to explore and uncover its various secrets. So you're going to be going up this really gorgeous board. Talk about table presence. This is a really stunning board. You're going to be trying to go deeper into Arnak, up that board on little worker placement spots that you're going to be opening up, which we're going to represent your different locations that you can visit. And you're going to be collecting various items and artifacts that you can add to your deck, which you can use to fulfill different requirements at different worker placement spots. It's basically worker placement, deck building, and then resource management. It's a lot of exchanging certain resources for other kinds so that you can fulfill specific requirements. I think the deck building aspect becomes much more interesting with the expansions that were released for this game that bring in variable player powers and also introduce unique decks for different characters. But yeah, no, I love this game. This is a super solid deck builder with a board. Yeah, Lost Ruins of Arnak. I want to say more about it, but that's really what it is. It really, at its core, is worker placement and deck building done very, very well, very cleanly. And
this is another one that was on my list, Ray. So I'm glad that you brought it to the collective list because I love worker placement, and I enjoy deck building when it's added to something else. And it just melded the two perfectly, in my opinion. I absolutely love
totally.
it. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was also,
worker placement's one of my favorite mechanics, so it works really well. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. It was on my list too, and I think one of the reasons, like, it has some very clean and distinct strategic paths, right, or paths that you can go down in terms of where you want to lean into, and so there's like the research. You can lean into buying more cards. You can lean into defeating the Guardians, and it just makes for a really, like, I haven't tried the expansions which you described. Sounds like those would be fun, but even just the base game, I like a lot.
Yeah, I would really recommend, if you like base Arnak, I really would recommend the expansions for it because while yes, there are different paths to victory, that research track, which is that like tan thing you see on the right, that's like your goal in the theme of Arnak is to learn about the island. So that research track is where you're going to get a lot of big point bumps. That's really what you should be focusing on. With the expansions, each character sort of focuses on a different aspect of the game. So you have a character who's all about overcoming Guardians, and her deck is geared around making that a more viable path to victory. You have characters who are more geared around the deck building aspect of it, where they get benefits from having certain cards. So it allows more variety in play and allows you, because there are those two really big mechanics, your worker placement and your deck building, right? The variable player powers with the expansions lets you lean into which one of those you like more, which is really cool. And you have a character in the most recent expansion that lets you manipulate your discard pile and do even cooler deck building stuff, which might be overwhelming for someone who doesn't like deck building, but is like the perfect character to play if you're someone who prefers that element of the game.
Yeah, and there's
one thing about Lost Ruins.
Oh
yeah. Sorry, that I when I first played it, I said, you start with 6 cards. This isn't, and you're going to get rid of 2 of them. This isn't a deck builder. Harumph. But like, yeah, I had a real harumph out there. But the more that I have played it, and I've started to play it a bunch, especially because it's on Board Game Arena.
It's really great on BGA. Yeah,
it's really nice. You can play a bunch of stuff in there, and it's in this year's lineup for the World Series of Board Gaming, which I was playing it a bunch in order to put out a strategy guide of it, essentially, because I wanted to have one of each of those on WSBG's YouTube channel. And so I was playing this a bunch, and I was like, oh, okay, now I see the deck building. It's one of those things where it's so hard to do anything until it's not. And then, like, once you figure out how to chain things, then the possibilities really open up. I find this one has like a bit of a learning curve for like a person going into it, playing against somebody who knows it. Like, you won't do that much in your turn because you'll think it's focused around the worker placement. And you'd think that the worker placement is like the key, when really it is that deck building and that resource management of like chaining things up on the side.
No, that's a really good point. The learning curve for this kind of comes out of nowhere, because on a base level, it's relatively simple. Like, none of the mechanics are particularly obtuse, but let me tell you, you boot up a game on BGA of this and someone will just absolutely kick your butt because they understand how to stretch out their turns at the end of the game and how to build a really good functioning deck. It's very humbling playing, because like when I first learned this when I was at CGA, I was like, oh, this is like pretty solid and simple. And then I played it a ton on BGA, and I learned a lot from watching people take 5 turns after I had finished being like, that's all I can do. So it's really cool. And it's got such an active community. I'm glad you brought up the BGA mod, because it's a really active game on Board Game Arena. So if you're interested in it, that's a great place to try it out.
Yeah. Quick question, Ray. Like, I don't know if you keep track, but how many times have you played Lost Ruins? I'm assuming it's a ton, right?
I would
just ballpark figure.
I'd probably say around 50.
Wow.
Or 60.
Wow.
Probably somewhere in that neighborhood. And the game only came out like a few years ago.
Yeah,
so
that's
I played
amazing.
it a lot. So I'm a little bit Arnak'd out, but I do very much respect that. Like, it is an incredibly solid worker placement.
Yeah, so good. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Chris, about the learning curve, because I was the same way, Ray. You know, I played it. Oh, yeah, deck building and worker placement. This is going to be easy. And then you're like, oh, my turn's over? What happened here? Oh, I need to do this, this, and this, and now I can extend myself. And I found that really fascinating. I loved it about the game, because it made me, after that first game I got annihilated, I was like, I need to play this again. And sure enough, I played it a few more times. Like,
Isn't that such a good feeling, though?
It really is.
Getting absolutely destroyed and being like, oh, I want to know how they did that. Yeah. How did they fool me?
Exactly. Oh, so fun. Great choice. Let's move on to our number 9. One of our guests, Yuval, you've got our number 9 today.
All right, so my number 9. I didn't go into the history books for this, but it might be the first combination worker placement deck builder, mostly because it combines pretty much every theme known to humans at the time, and it's Copycat. Copycat by Friedman Fries came out, I want to say, about 10, 12 years ago. And it was really created as an homage to a whole bunch of other games. So it had the deck building from Dominion. It had the worker placement from Agricola. It had the card purchasing from Through the Ages. It had something from Puerto Rico. It even had like a scoring error on the border track as an homage to like the original Ticket to Ride. But you know, and so like there was the gimmick around like, you know, it trying to sort of pull all these things together, but did it in a really good way. Like, it's a really fun, interesting game. You're basically collecting resources and using those resources to purchase cards and victory points, right? Like, it's a very straightforward, like it's pretty easy to jump into, I would say. Probably easier than some of the other games we're talking, in spite of it having so many mechanisms, but just because at its core, it's still a very simple thing. You're just getting coins and then using those coins in your cards to get victory points in different ways. But yeah, the game itself is solid. Like, you're playing over 13 rounds or 14 rounds, whatever Agricola is, and then each round you're drawing from your deck and hopefully trashing cards. It has, you see there the red cards, those are toilet paper, which are in essence your they're not quite negative points like in Dominion, but they're garbage in your deck. And whenever you try to purchase cards to the right of them, you're picking them up and they clutter your deck. So you have to try to find ways to get rid of them to get that deck efficiency. But yeah, no, that's my number 9.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Great pick.
Yeah,
I played Copycat for the first time this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the Niagara Board Game.
Insisted on you playing it.
Yeah. I didn't expect it to be like, I was like, what is this weird game? It's got a weird cover. And then I didn't realize it was Friedemann Friese as well, who did Power Grid, and that really hooked me in. And then playing it just blew me away. It was like my second favorite thing that I played at that con. It was only Great Western Trail New Zealand that that surpassed it for me. But it was like, it's really, really good. Like, it's so slick in terms of how this all works, and it's so surprising for it being an older game, right?
Yeah.
It is older. I'm going to look up what year it came out now, actually, while we're chatting. But I think it's really fun, and it blew me away by how clever it is. Also, with having all those like little homages in it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've never heard of this game, and it's funny that it's a Friedemann Friese game. I just assume all his games started with the letter F.
Yeah, me too.
It's like,
this might be one of the few exceptions.
Yeah. So
2012 is when it came out.
2012. Oh my gosh. So this is in board game terms, that's ancient, right? So this looks fascinating. I thank you for bringing this into the list because I really want to play this. It looks really cool. Again, that whole blend of all the different mechanisms with deck building. There's so many different ways to do it, and I think this one looks really cool. I
would say the game is great. Like, I think where it does fall a little bit is it doesn't have the depth of some of these other games. Like, as I've described it, again, it sounds like there's a lot of mechanisms. There's a fair number of them, but the overall depth, I would still put it as like a 2.5 or something like that on BGG. Like,
I'd do like 2.75,
right? Like, it's still a notch below, at least for me, a notch below where I usually tend to in terms of like weight of a game, but it's still a great design. And it's interesting because I was looking at ideas as researching for this show today. And when I saw it, I was like, of course, that has to be on the list. But also what was interesting to me is like, I feel like there's a lot of emphasis given on Lost Ruins of Arnak and Dune Imperium as two games that brought worker placement and deck building together. And they were like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And this was in 2012. And it did it.
Cool.
And it's like no one is connecting the dots to, oh, wait a second. It actually is. That might be the first one.
Yeah. Is this game still in print? Do you guys anyone have any ideas? Is it still in print? Because
I don't know, but I can tell you that my wife would object vehemently if I tried to trade it away or give it away. So I'm holding on to it. I'm holding on to it. It is definitely one of the favorites in the house.
Very nice. Oh, that's good.
You should bring that over the next time you come.
Trains was also 2012.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bring that over the next time you come. I'd like to play it. I didn't even know it existed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to our number 8. Number 9 was Copycat. Really cool. Helaina, you've got our number 8 for the list today.
I don't know which one it is.
Oh, okay. I should have prepped you. That's on me, Helaina. You're number 8, and we're going to talk about, I'm so happy that you put this on the list. It's a game called Clank.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, I feel like for a lot of people, this was the first time the deck builder and board put together was really realized. Obviously, it was designed, or those kind of games were designed many, many years ago, but this caught my attention. So I need to say this. The first time I played this game, I played it completely wrong. And I was not impressed. I actually was like, I was very impressed with the fact that I love Dominion. We played the crap out of Dominion for years, but I was very impressed with the fact that you could use a deck builder to do all of these other things. And that was very exciting. And of course, a dungeon crawler is very exciting as well. And so we played it, and it took us like 45 minutes to play. And the dragon just was so overpowering that I was like, how could anyone ever win this game? It's not possible. And so we played it wrong. And I was like, I don't think I ever need to play this game again. And somebody convinced me to play it one more time. And I did. And I realized that I liked it. And it was a very long time ago. But it was really neat to me that you could be using your cards to move your worker around the board and get loot and all of these different things that I hadn't ever experienced anything like that before. So this was my first experience knowing that a deck builder could be used for something else, and I thought it was just brilliant.
Yeah, this was on my short list that would have made it. It's on my personal top 10 deck building games with a board. I absolutely love this. And the Legacy Edition, that's to this day, it's still my favorite Legacy game I've ever played. Like the storyline, like I haven't laughed harder in any other Legacy game than I did in Clank Acquisitions Incorporated. It was fantastic.
Yeah, Ruel, I'm with you. I had Clank. I had Acquisitions Incorporated on my list. It's both one of the top deck builders with a board, but also I had it as it's definitely my top Legacy game, or that or Risk Legacy. But honestly, I think Acquisitions Incorporated is has a notch up because of that humor factor.
Agreed. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, I really want to play Acquisitions Incorporated. So I've only played base Clank.
Okay,
but
it's so good.
Yeah. I feel like Clank it's a great pick. It's a really great pick. I like it. It's just such a solid thing.
Yeah. It really is. I feel like the game is getting better with each release. Like I love base Clank, and then they came out with Clank in Space. That one was a lot of fun. And then they came out with the Legacy game, which was amazing. I personally love Clank Catacombs, the newest one, because to me that feels more of a true dungeon crawl. Because now instead of a static board, you have the tiles, and those you flip over the tiles one at a time, and you build the dungeon. Now, I think that was a brilliant choice, and I love Clank Catacombs. And it still keeps the same system of deck building, right? You got your combat, you have your movement and whatnot. It's so good.
I mean, you have to know a game is really solid, and the deck building of this game when they keep making newer versions of the game over and over again. They all do very well.
Yeah, so good. What was it? The push your luck factor in this game too. I really enjoy that, right? Because sort of like Lost Ruins of Arnak, which I didn't really get at first. I was sort of the same way with Clank. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the deepest part of the dungeon every time so I can get the biggest treasure. And sure enough, I'd be the guy that's like stuck under there like, oh, bye everybody, I'm dead or I'm knocked out. Thanks.
This is such a solid pick. I think it sounds like pretty much everyone had this on their list, and I know during the pre-show everyone was yelling that in chat as well. I feel like this is the first game that I thought of as well for this category. It's so iconic and so classic at this point.
It really is. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to number 7. This is going to be Richard through the power of video. Richard, what do you think of our choices? And first, and most importantly, what's on your number 7 for the list?
Oh boy. All right. Great list so far. Helaina and Yuval, welcome to the party. I'm sure you've already been welcomed. I can't wait to see the pre-show. Can't wait to see what everybody says in the post-show. But yeah, this list is starting off great. Chris, Trains is an excellent choice, and I just fundamentally don't understand. Aren't we supposed to have some kind of will they, won't they? You make silly choices, I make fun of them, but everybody knows there's something... all I can say is Trains is an excellent decision. The epitome of what this board games, crossed with deck builders is all about. Dominion plus route building, super smart stuff. And well, Underdark, I have to admit, that's one of the few games on the list today that I really don't know anything about. I remember it being a big deal back when it first came out, but I was never interested in it because at the end of the day, it is an area control battle for dominance. But that seems like a very good thing to meld with deck building. Ray, you stole one of mine. Arnak was going to be on my short list, especially because of the new Lost Expedition expansion that turns it into a 2-player co-op game. It is absolutely phenomenal. The Leaders expansion is a must-have. I gotta say, Arnak without those expansions, I don't think would have made my short list, but those expansions really elevate the game so much. Yuval, Copycat, I have not heard or thought about that game in years. My wife loved it so much. And, it kind of harkens back to a simpler era when there just weren't very many games coming out. And it was a really big deal that a designer would mesh concepts from other games. What was it? Worker placement from Agricola, the deck building from Dominion, and then I think the card drafting from Through the Ages. And if I recall correctly, Friedman Fries literally reached out to Rosenberg and Chevatel and Vaccarino to get their permission to, of course, these days we have so many games and there's so many wonderful examples of fusions of ideas, because, we're living in a golden age of board games, and, Copycat is from a bygone era. And, really, my only complaint about it, as I recall, is it was a relatively small game in a gigantic box, and I just couldn't keep it on my shelf because of that reason. And then Helaina, Clank. I am sure you're not alone with this. Personally, I'm sure I'm not alone with this as well. It's all about the Acquisitions Incorporated Legacy version. I got rid of my original versions of Clank and kept my own personal customized board to play on. Such an amazing breakthrough. Although, man, I think I love Clank in Space even more. But anyway, those are all excellent choices. Now let me move on to my, I think, excellent choice for number 7 on our combined list. It is Dead Reckoning with, I should add, the Letters of the Marque expansion. Now, Dead Reckoning is a 4X style, piracy on the high seas simulation where we are, exploring the Caribbean and, claiming islands and engaging in all kinds of piratey stuff, including direct player-on-player action, if that's your thing, which is why Dead Reckoning was never really that interesting to me until the Letters of the Marque expansion came out and turned it into a cooperative pirate adventure, which is absolutely phenomenal. There is so much going on with it. It is so great. But that's not why it's on this list. It's on this list because it's also an amazing fusion of deck building and 4X, traveling around a map thing. And what makes it even more special is it's deck building with designer John D. Clare's excellent card crafting system, where each one of the cards in my deck is one of the members of my crew. And they start out with some very simple powers, but over the course of the game, as we explore and move our ships out to different islands, we can grab additional cards, upgrade our existing cards with them, and try to basically train our pirates to be better. And then go about our business, dueling on the high seas and all of that. I love card crafting. I love deck building. I love cooperation. And, pirates are fun too. Once you get the Letters of the Marque, my only complaint about this is it's a long game. It is a get comfortable for the whole afternoon. But if you've got this, cooperative deck builders are a rarity in the first place. It seems like everybody always thinks of deck building as a competitive thing for the most part. And I love co-op deck building, and I love number 7 on our list, Dead Reckoning with the Letters of the Marque expansion. Okay, back to you guys.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Yeah, wonderful choice, Dead Reckoning. Now, I haven't played it with the Letters of Marque expansion, which turns it into a cooperative game, but I can tell you, Dead Reckoning is an amazing game. One of my favorite designers, John D. Clare, who also just happens to be a Dodgers fan. Shout out to John. It's a brilliant 4X game, and I never would have thought Richard would like it, but because of that expansion, it brought him in, and he was able to see how brilliant the game was. So I'm really excited to see this on the list. I'm going to give a little grief to Richard, though. We were talking about deck building with a board. Isn't this technically card crafting? What do y'all think? I thought it was card craft. Is it the same thing?
Yeah,
Chris?
I was gonna ask you, Ruel. I was like, Ruel, number one, I love that Helena's hat is really making you double down on the Dodgers all throughout this stream. And two, I was like, but is it deck building? Especially because pool building was eliminated. Because that was specifically eliminated. I don't know how many additional cards you're adding in when it's more that you're upgrading the cards that you already have, which is still great, and I still think that falls into pool building, but maybe it's pool building with the board. I suppose we'd turn this list into everybody revamp your picks. Drama. I knew I'd get the upper hand one of these days, and today is that day.
You see it here. You see it here, folks, right here on the Arnak Show. Chris has gotten back his revenge.
Okay, you know what? I never do this normally, but here's future Rahdo having to jump in. I don't begrudge Chris getting his revenge, but I'd really like him to earn it, and he didn't this time. Sorry, buddy. And I'm going to have to take back everything nice I said about you in the rest of this video, but here's the deal. You start with a deck of cards in Dead Reckoning. You then get more cards from the board, and you add them to your existing deck of cards. Your deck gets bigger and more complex over the course of the game, and you still do all the normal deck building stuff of only drawing a certain number of them, playing them, then drawing more from your deck when your deck is empty, reshuffling and all the rest of it. You start with cards, 10 if I recall correctly. You add a bunch more cards to your deck, and you build a deck throughout. The twist is, and okay, I'll give Chris if he doesn't quite understand this because he hasn't played, but Ruel, you should have known better. The beautiful part of this is when you're adding new cards to your deck, you are basically forcing certain combos. That's not something you normally get to do in a deck builder, but it's worth pointing out. Normally, you put more cards into your deck, and then you hope on a later turn those cards will show up at the same time so that you can combo them together. Here, you can guarantee those cards will show up at the same time, and that's the beautiful twist. That's what makes this a deck builder with so much more control than you normally get. And I forgot to mention, I love the fact that when you get a new card, you don't have to put it in your deck right away. You can put it off to the side and wait for the perfect moment to add it to your deck. So this is more of a deck builder than most every other deck builder on this list. Okay, I've said my piece. Let's get back to it.
Have y'all? Has anyone else played Deck Reckoning? I mean, it is so good.
Not.
Yeah, I would.
It's sitting on my shelf.
Oh, yeah, Helaina, play it. It's wonderful. Okay. It's
right.
So John, they had originally released Mystic Veil with that card crafting system, which is great, which I loved, and then they came out with Edge of Darkness. For me personally, that fell a little flat. But then Dead Reckoning, I thought, really tied in everything together with card crafting. And I mean, I guess I can see how card crafting is like deck building, but I may have to agree with Chris on this one, Richard. But you know what? It's your show. We're okay with it. Let's.
I was glad because I was like, I got to turn to Ruel because I've only I haven't played Dead Reckoning either, but I've read through the rules and I think it looks really, really good.
Yeah,
I love the little ship that you throw the cube tower that they use,
perfect,
which spits out the cubes of how the pirate attacks you. I think it looks really cool.
It's so much fun. Yeah. Okay.
But you know what is deck building with a board? My next pick.
Yes.
Good segue.
Brilliant segue.
However, before we jump into it, Yuval got a text while Richard was speaking. And
my wife scolded me for even contemplating the potential of trading Copycat. I'm not trading Copycat. It is not available, folks.
Now,
that's great.
I will say, while Yuval is just my neighbor, Yuval's wife, Kara, is not my neighbor, is my friend.
Okay.
So I just want to make that
there's no worry about a conflict there.
Yeah, no conflict there. So when Kara comes out with her game, then I'll be very biased. Okay, but our number 6, my number 2. This, when I did my own list of deck building games, I had a top 10 deck building list on Room and Board. This didn't make number 1. Trains made the number 1 spot because of how much the deck building influences my opinion of it. So that was like my criteria for that. But in this instant, this is a game that is my number 2 game of all time. I love this game so much, and this is what made me realize that I love deck building with a board. It's that dual aspect of it. It's Attack on Titan, the deck builder, which I know you knew that was coming. We've played it, and you didn't have as great of a time in that play, I think. But
I'd give it another go.
Yeah, I'll describe it for everybody at home. Attack on Titan, the deck builder is. Well, it's just the second best game you've ever played. There you go. That's all I need to say. No, it's so good. It's based off of the anime Attack on Titan, which I am particularly a fan of. That's probably in my top 5 shows of all time. I think it's a phenomenal show just in general, even if you don't like anime. Just get to episode 5, and if you don't like it, then you won't be hooked. But let me talk about the game finally. The reason why I like this game is because you are fending off these different Titans, and you have the standard market that you have in a lot of deck builders, but that market is spread out across the walls. And so in order to attack the Titans, kind of like tower defense style, and to defeat the Titans, you actually have to get to that spot. The same way for picking up useful items to go into your deck, you actually have to move to get to that spot. And so you are juggling these 2 resources, essentially the movement resource and the power resource. The power resource, which lets you buy cards, and the power resource, which lets you attack Titans. And so juggling those 3 things, one, not spending power to improve your deck because you have to protect the walls and defeat the Titans, makes, I think, for a really exciting juggle. And then also juggling how much movement do you have in your deck, how much movement do you keep in your deck, and how can you access these cards and these choke points in the wall, I think is also really cool. So there are essentially 10 spaces on the board, the outside of the wall and the inside of the wall. And then each wall itself also is a district, right? So the inside and the outside count as a district. And so I also think there's a lot of really cool interaction of the cards where it's like attack a Titan in this district. So you can pull back behind the wall, fire your cannons off at the Titan, do a bunch of damage, then jump back over, pull out your swords, which get an extra bonus if you're in a Titan space specifically instead of the district, hit them with your swords, right? There's such a dynamic flow to this game, which I love. And also the theme of it is exceptional. If you're a fan of the anime, this came out after season 1 was released. And so it sort of follows the narrative of season 1 in terms of what characters are available and also what the characters do is so directly tied to the game as well. Like every single card, if you're a fan of the anime, like resonates with its significance of the character. For example, there's a 1-bit part character, this guy who dies from a Titan because he's trying to bring back his buddy's dead body. It's a very scary world, and so he's the one who can get cards back from the trash pile. He's the only person who can do that, right? And it's just like all those little things where if you know the show, like it really, really makes sense, and combined thematically with its mechanics, I love it. It's incredible. Richard was talking about this in the deck building episode. He's like, I'm surprised Attack on Titan wasn't there, but it's because of that movement aspect playing such a huge part that you have to navigate, which is why I was saving it for this list.
Yeah. A question, Chris, for someone that hasn't watched the show, how does that affect the experience, if any?
I think it does affect the experience a little bit. Like you won't be as enamored with it. Yuval, you've never seen the show, and you played it with me.
Yeah, so I've never seen the show. I played it. I think what threw me off was as much the IP was. It is a co-op, and it's a co-op where there's some element of alpha playing that can happen, and sort of like, well, we're all just agreeing together what everyone is doing. And especially if you're playing with people that have played before or you haven't, then, it versus a lot of the more modern co-ops have found ways to prevent that type of thing. And so it's definitely, it's one of the, and you weren't the player.
Thank you. I was not the player.
He was not the alpha player. No, he was very good about it. But yeah, so I think
I was not the alpha player.
Not the alpha player. Is that your new catchphrase?
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, so the game, but I think at its heart, the deck building is not that different. I think where it's different is like the moving around, and definitely I remember that being kind of a neat element around. You're trying to figure out how to balance the resources and the attack, as well as getting to the right place to use those things.
Yeah, I think that is a good point too, though, because this game is very hard, or it can be very difficult. There is the tendency where one of your players does eventually build up like a really attacking deck, and that generally feels good across the board. And you have to be a certain type of player to like having a support deck as well, too. Like you kind of do end up falling into these roles a little bit just based upon the pace of the game. Not everybody can get that attacking deck. And so if one player is running around being like, that's a cool card, I'm just going to go buy it, pick it up. I'm going to go buy it, pick it up. And then we're like, okay, well, I guess we better kill the Titans and allow you to draw your really cool combos, right? Like that is the danger in which it can fall into for sure. And we were playing at a
certain
higher,
roles
higher
definitely
count.
certain roles definitely are more fun than others.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that is really worth flagging for sure, especially because that can happen, and it sort of does push you into that play style. And so if I generally play this at like 2 or 3, which I think really works well, because then you get a little bit, you don't have to go full support. Right. Whereas like in a larger player game, sometimes you go full support. And I like being a support deck. I like being like, draw the card, protect you. But I don't get to do all the cool fun things. And like I can let other people do those fun things because I'm not the alpha gamer. Okay, hashtag not the alpha. I've been a beta all my life, and I'm not going to change now.
Oh no!
I was asking because my niece is a huge fan of the show, and I've never seen it, so. But I know the game is supposed to be excellent. I've never played it, so I'm wondering, hey, maybe I buy the game, and then she can sort of guide me on the theme, and I can, we'll play it together, and see how that goes.
Yeah, you don't need to know the theme to play. You don't need to understand the theme to play the game.
It just elevates it.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
You will need. It is, I think, might be out of print, so you might have to look for a copy. Every time I see a copy, I try to buy it so that I can then.
So you have 20 copies here.
You're the reason it's out of print.
Well, no, because I know it's out of print.
I can have
so
Monopoly and get people excited about it. Like, hey, you want this copy that I happen to have? I just so happen to have the solution to this problem that I manufactured myself by buying all of them.
I would sell it at cost, and also. I have 2 copies in case my copy gets damaged, so that because I love it so much, I want to have an extra copy. Okay. But I'll look. I saw a 3rd copy the other day on the
bought it.
Shelf, and I almost bought it.
Sell it at cost.
They were selling it for 50 Canadian, which was a bit above my price range for my 3rd copy of the game. So I would have done it for 30.
Oh, why do I feel like I'm going to get price gouged real soon? Anyways, folks, thank you, Chris. Thank you for the number 6 to our list. Let's move on to number 5. Number 5 is my choice. And before I can talk about number 5, I need to get ready. So give me just a second.
Oh, all right. Wait.
I'm so excited. Oh, I know what it is now. I know what it is.
I've got my Dodgers cap.
Love a hat change.
I've got my little baseball bat from the Louisville Slugger Museum.
It's so small.
I've got a baseball from the last minor league game I went to. There was a foul ball that we got. Oh. Folks, number 5 is my all-time favorite deck builder. It is Baseball Highlights 2045.
Cute.
I love the heck out of this game. Y'all know how much of a baseball fan I am. Here I am playing it solo. It's a great solo game. In this game, we are in the future by a couple of decades, and baseball has been taken over by robots and cyborgs. And in this game, you are building a deck of players, starting with your veterans and rookies, and eventually you're going to shed those out of your deck. You send them down to the minors and get the more powerful cards, which are the free agents. And what you do is you're going to simulate a baseball game using only 6 cards. And that's what I love about this. 6 cards, it's a lot of back and forth. So I will play one of my players. It has an ability. If you have an ability on one of your players' cards, you play that in order to counteract my ability. And we go back and forth for 6 cards. We score runs. I mean, it is baseball at its heart, and I love it. And the cool thing is, with those robots and cyborgs and the naturals who are the humans, they all have different types of abilities. They play differently, and you mash them all up in your deck, and what you're trying to do is win the World Series. So best out of 7. Each mini game that you play, the 6 card games, they take maybe 5 to 10 minutes, not even that long. And then the entire series takes about 45 minutes. I love this game. I've talked about this game plenty of times on this show because I think it's just so smart. I think it's just brilliantly conceived. Mike Fitzgerald, this is his masterpiece. This is the game that... and for me, it's the greatest sports game ever released. I can't think of any other sports game that does it as well as Baseball Highlights 2045. I mean, I could do an entire show about this, and I've streamed this on my channel like several times with mainly solo because I love it so much. Any excuse to play it or talk about it, I'm all over it. Much like the 7-time world champion winning Los Angeles Dodgers, I'm always looking for an excuse to talk about or play my favorite deck building game. And number 5 on our list, Baseball Highlights 2045.
I
love this for you, Ruel.
Thank you, Ray.
I love how much you love baseball. It brings me a lot of joy. We talked about a couple episodes ago. I went to my very first baseball game, so now I kind of get it. I'm not gonna say I fully get it, but I kind of get it.
That's the one game.
I just literally just the one game. I'm like, all right. Everyone was eating nails. It was very confusing. Which is a joke you'd only get if you watch the pre-show.
Yeah, watch the pre-show. Folks, click on the links below. We'll talk about this bag here, which may or may not be nails. Helaina, have you played this game before?
You know what? I haven't played it yet.
Okay.
I have always meant to play it, and it's shocking that I haven't played it yet. I am not surprised that you chose it. And also, I do find that it is very difficult to make any sport good in a board game. It's really, really difficult. And I've heard nothing but good things. And I've talked to Mike about the game many, many times. And I definitely want to play it. I haven't gotten to it. But I also am a massive baseball fan. So why haven't I played it yet?
Yeah. We need to play this next time. Whatever convention we're at next together, Helaina, I'll bring my copy and we'll play it. It's just so good. And just everything, just the little details, again, in the game itself as a baseball fan, even if a non-baseball fan will enjoy this. And I should point that out. My buddy Daryl, my main gaming buddy, he doesn't like baseball at all. It is not his jam, but he will play Baseball Highlights anytime I bring it out because the deck building is smart. And the gameplay, it's a lot of back and forth, which I like. You play one card, the opposing manager comes back with another. There's a lot of give and take in this game. It's wonderful. And it never feels mean. It's just, I think other attacking games may feel mean, but in Baseball Highlights, it's like, hey, I'm just playing this player that has, produced a hit, and then you've played a player that catches it or gets him out or whatever. And then, the trash talk comes in later, like when I talk about the Dodgers winning 7 world championships. That comes in later, but it's always part of the game as well. I adore this game, obviously, and y'all need to play it. And Helaina, we will play a game of this one day, definitely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Cool.
So I own this game too. My youngest son Josh, who is a huge baseball fan as well. We got it for him. I want to say a year or two ago, and played it multiple times. And it's really it's at its like underneath everything. It's just tic-tac-toe, but it's just done so well.
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors. I should say rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. And just done so well. The baseball theme comes out really nicely through it. You have the different expansions, right? Like the different expansion teams, and then the layering on the whole cyborg robot versus what I don't remember the three types, but it's like it's an interesting take because they could have easily just done regular baseball, but then they took it to the future.
Yeah,
and I gotta play this with you guys.
Ruel talks about it so much.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, please.
I didn't know you had a copy.
Chris,
I have a
we'll play at the
copy,
World
yeah.
Series of Board Games. I'll bring my copy. We'll play it there. Yeah, the cyborgs, the robots, and the naturals, the humans, right? Those are the three different types, and each one plays differently.
Yeah.
And I know we're going way long on this, but I don't care because I've got the mic right now. I just everything about it.
You've got the
just,
Ruel's show now.
it's only the R show right now. Just everything about
Yeah,
it.
we don't even need to play Richard's next video. He chose a card crafter in the very specific deck builder with the board genre. Okay, he lost his video privileges. See you later.
Too bad, Richard. But yeah, everything about this is so good. And if you haven't tried it, folks, please give it a shot. And I will shut up about Baseball Highlights 2045 now, so we can allow someone else to talk about our number 4 game. Who is it going to go? It's going to go to Ray.
I think it's me. All right. Well, our number 4 pick is a game that's kind of new to me. I missed the original Kickstarter for it, so I hopped on the retail train, and that is Moonrakers. This is a game that combines deck building with social negotiation. So this is a game where you are trying to go out on various missions, and depending on, you draw 5 cards in your hand, and each mission will require you to have a certain set of colors of cards, right? So maybe this mission requires 2 blue and 4 yellow, and you draw a hand of cards. Each color of card will do something, like some will let you draw more cards, some will protect you from damage, one of them will let you take more actions. Kind of has a Dominion-esque action economy where you need to play some cards in order to get more actions to play more cards. But because of that, sometimes you'll get stuck with a hand where you're like, I can't really finagle the colors of cards that I need to fulfill this requirement. And that's when you can open it up to negotiation, where you can ask all the people at the table who wants to help me with this. And you can pretty much negotiate anything as like an agreement, right? So you can negotiate for points, you can negotiate for money, you can negotiate who's going to take any potential damage from this mission. And this game is not for everyone. And it may be ranked a little bit high on this list because of that, because it's like, if you don't like social negotiation, you're not going to like this. I loved, when I was a kid, playing Catan, being that person who would just sit on my turn until someone traded me what I wanted. So maybe I just like this game because I'm annoying. But
this is why we're friends,
that.
Ray.
That was like that was my favorite part of Catan, was that trading, that negotiation part, and being like, it doesn't say in the rules that I have to pass my turn. I'm a sit here. So maybe I just like this game because I'm annoying. But
you earned every trade, and don't let anybody ever tell you different.
Thank you.
You and me both.
Thank you.
Let's go.
But if you find other people who are also annoying and like that kind of stuff, this can be really fun. It is dependent on the people you're playing with. Negotiation is not everyone's cup of tea. I do find that sometimes the game can drag a little bit because of that, because those negotiations are very nebulous. There's a house rule. There's a rule in the rule book for like doing time negotiations and stuff. But yeah, it takes deck building and adds an interesting social negotiation aspect on top of that. The deck building isn't anything wild and crazy. I think honestly the most interesting part of it is that sort of action tree, action economy that you can do with those blue cards that allow you to play more cards, again, kind of like Dominion. You can add ship upgrades to your ship that will allow you to do bigger, better things. And it has that ramp up that I love in deck builders. Even though the deck building isn't super robust, it still feels like a deck builder where, you know, at the beginning you're like, I can't do anything. By the end, you're like, boom and boom, boom, I do this and this and this. It has that feeling still at the end, even though it is a very surface level deck builder. And I love that it has a social element to it. I really don't think that's one of the things that Ivy Studios is kind of, I feel like, known for. They just take a mechanic and add a cool social element to it. And I tend to like games with a lot of table talk and interaction. It's also ridiculously overproduced for no reason, which I love. We talked about that in the pre-show. I love a really nice performance.
Everything.
There's no reason this game has to become the biggest box in the world. It's basically just cards. I love that though. So this is a very me pick. It's not going to be for everyone. But that's Moonrakers.
Yeah, this is such a great choice, Ray. And you know, there's that common complaint. People talk about deck building like it's just multiplayer solitaire, right? Moonrakers takes care of that problem. It is definitely not solitaire because you're negotiating. I love that about this game. And agreed regarding everything being overproduced. It's fantastic. It's a beautiful
for no reason.
Yeah,
but
totally,
I love it.
Right? Yeah, love it.
I do love that.
Now, Now I'm also curious too, because I know the expansion. I think it's the green expansion. They had 3 different expansion modules. I don't know what the actual title is, but I know it's green. The green expansion provides that sort of like board navigational element to it. I'm saying this. I don't know how prevalent. I haven't played Moonrakers, but I've played other Ivy Studios titles. How prevalent is there? Like you're using the negotiation as the main outside factor of that deck building as part of this, right?
So I haven't played any of the expansions. For me, the reason this is on the list, we talked about this a little bit earlier, like how we're defining this list. For me, this made this list not because the board really does anything. There isn't really a board, but there is another substantial mechanic. One, so
you're covered.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Of course. That was totally why I picked it, even though I never have played that expansion. But I thought this was a valid pick because that negotiation is so prevalent. Like this game really doesn't function the way it's supposed to unless you're striking those interesting deals and forming those alliances. And that, to me, is when I describe this game, I describe it first as a negotiation game and second as a deck building game. So that's why it made this list and not our previous list.
Yeah.
One thing I really like about Ivy Studios is that I find I've played Veiled Fate and I've played Fractured Sky, and Moonrakers gets this as well. I believe is that they really shine with a lot of above the table interaction. I think they're great vehicles for that, for 100%. What exactly you're describing. Above the table interaction, which doesn't resonate with all groups, but if you have a group that does like it, then I think that's why they're such smash hits.
Yeah,
agreed.
Absolutely, definitely not for everyone. I would not recommend this for everyone. But if you know you like table talk. And you like that interaction, you like forming those alliances, and that's a fun and not stressful thing for you.
Totally.
Then
yeah, great call. Okay, let's move on to our number 3. Yuval, you've got our 3rd pick on the list.
My number 3 is the result of an emotional journey that I'm happy to take you all through.
Wow.
I can't wait.
Sit down, grab a tea. No, basically, I had a wonderful list of deck builders with boards. And one by one, I was shot down. Oh, this is on someone else's list, or this doesn't make the cut. It doesn't involve a deck. And eventually, I was like looking at games that I just really love and play a lot. And I stumbled on one which is very high on in terms of my favorites, which is Sid Meier's Civilization: The Board Game by Kevin Wilson from 2010. And I realized it has a tiny deck building mechanism based around.
Why this is on the list?
Based around the military cards, because you're collecting military cards. They're going into your deck, and you're drawing from that deck when you go to battle. And so I feel kind of cheaty, but I'm going to do it anyways because it's a great game. It is one of the best 4X games I've ever played. Probably my favorite one. Part of it is, I think, any of us that have played Civilization on the computer over the years, it's true to that in such a nice way. Like you're basically exploring, you get the role of one of the civilizations. Each one has very unique and distinct feel in terms of the types of things it does. There's a really neat tech tree element where you're like building a pyramid of technology. And then you have a wonderfully rich, deck building that is used to inform, like for the military, whenever you're going to battle with someone, you're basically drawing from your military deck of cards, and you're then laying them out in a line, basically, or you're sending these military units to the different fronts, and whenever you buy new cards that are stronger cards, they go into your deck. So there you go. My number 3, the best.
Our collective number 3.
The collective number 3. Sid Meier's Civilization: The Board Game.
Oh man, I'm crying. That story was so emotional.
I know, right?
Justified.
What a
I think this is a great pick. It's not like you picked Dead Reckoning. I mean, come on. I think this is a great choice. I've never played it, but hey, I got a Steam notification that Sid Meier's Civilization 5 was on sale.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, should I get it?
I don't play the video game anymore.
Okay. So it's a no. It's a no.
I play the board game version. It's so good. I'll play that with you though.
All right.
Good.
I need to play this at some point. I've played the video game, but never the board game. So, I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to our number 2 on the list. Helaina, what do we have at number 2 today?
Well, it's How to Save a World.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is the game that we currently have on Kickstarter right now, and it is primarily a worker placement game, and it's got a little bit of deck building in it. And I'm going to actually turn it over to Yuval, who is the designer of the game, who does a fantastic job explaining the game. So take it away, Yuval.
Thank you. Yeah, excited to share. So, the premise of the game is we're scientists. We've been studying this planet Alaria, which is the only planet in the galaxy that has life aside from Earth. And as we're studying this, we discover an asteroid. Leviathan is its name, hurtling towards the planet in what will surely be an extinction level event. So like good scientists, we want to save the planet, but also like good scientists, we can't really agree on the best way to do it. And so it is a competitive game where each person is, in essence, investing, putting resources that they've earned into 3 different projects, either trying to build a massive laser that is going to shoot the asteroid out of the sky, or build an energy shield that will deflect the asteroid if it manages to make its way to Alaria. And then as a last resort, if you think that all of those are foolish, you can just try to evacuate as much of that life as you can. And so that's the premise. And then, mechanically, as Helaina mentioned, it's sort of combining worker placement with card management and deck building. And so you have workers that are split between the 2 worlds, so to speak. There's Alaria and the moon, and workers on Alaria can go to the spaces on Alaria, and workers on the moon can go to spaces on the moon. And there's a mechanism whereby the workers end up shuffling around and can be moved around. But then you also have a really rich set of cards that you can use. There's 3 types of cards that you're adding into your deck. There's yellow cards, which are, in essence, additional actions that you can take without a worker. There are boosts, which improve the output of any of those actions from a worker or a card action. And you also have species cards, which have victory point conditions. And a lot of the cards have tags on them that let you sort of get additional value, or you can use those tags in different ways in the game. But then the deck building piece is actually one that innovated a lot, and I'm really excited by. And maybe I'll talk about that since that's the theme of the day.
Yeah,
like it started as a traditional deck builder, very much like Dominion. And Chris, the first, basically that's how Chris had always played it. That's what it was when I brought it to Burnt Island. You'd have a deck, you'd buy cards, they would go into your deck, and you draw 5 at the beginning of each turn. But then Burnt Island, and I give a lot of credit to Alara Cameron and Josh Capel.
How did the world get named, I wonder?
So Alara and Josh did this really cool sort of tag team. Alara's idea was to start you with less cards. So you actually just start with all of your cards. You start with 3 cards in your deck, but at the beginning of each round, you just get all of your deck. You get the whole deck. But then as the game goes on, you can buy more cards. And again, it never gets shuffled in because at the beginning of each round, you get all of your deck. You just get all of it. Josh, I think, had the innovation where rather than having costs on cards, the cost is now tied to how many total cards you own, which is a really neat, basically push-pull. Basically means there's no hand limit. You can have as many cards as you want, but it just gets increasingly more painful and costly to purchase them. And so some people will invest a lot of their resources into getting a big whack of cards, and other people will maybe only buy 1 or 2 cards for the game, but then focus their resources on many of the other things, research or the projects. So the deck building is very different. It feels like you're building a deck because you're getting it every single round.
God, that's
such I love that. That's so cool.
And the cards themselves are dual use, so you are really getting a lot of use out of out of every card you have on every turn, or on every round.
Very nice.
Really neat.
Yeah, that's one thing that I really like about the, because you can buy cards that are essentially objectives, victory points at the end,
Right.
But they have tags on them so that they're not just sitting there useless. You actively use them to power up your workers every time. I think I will allow it on our deck builder with a board list. I'll make the call because I first played it as a deck builder, and now I feel like I would describe it more as like a pool builder, similar like Rococo's on my short list as well.
Okay.
In terms of that, like the cycle of cards and the about the amount of cards that you get feels kind of comparable to How to Save a World in terms of that cycle. There's a couple more restrictions on the cards that you have with Rococo, but and especially since Richard just went completely off script with card crafting. I mean, come on. We can. I really like it as this sort of pool builder, and that was actually a real big concern of mine. I think I say this in my review too. I was worried because I liked it so much as a deck builder. I was worried I wouldn't like it as this like pool builder. I was worried I wouldn't like it without that randomness that deck building has. You know, the drawing and I didn't get the card that I want, but I really really like the flow of it. And even though like it's not on shelves yet, it will be on everybody who's watching this show's shelf, because it should be, because you're not monsters. And I can say that being not associated with Burnt Island, I don't even like this person. He's my neighbor. Let me specify, my neighbor, not my friend. And but I've like, this is a game that I feel so personally attached to because I've seen it at so many stages of development and iteration, and it is something that's just gotten better and better and better. Like with the development team at Burnt Island, for sure. Like nothing, this guy couldn't have come up with a lot of that sort of stuff. This dumb dummy. But no. Well, like it's really it's been really lovely to see it evolve from this deck builder to now like this hybrid, this pool builder, and the how the cards are so intertwined to what you do on the board is really cool and fun to experiment with. I've played it where I've ended with like 11 or 12 cards in my hand. I played it where I've ended with 5 cards in my hand. And both of those feel equally fun and viable. So like,
awesome.
This is absolutely when I remake my own list of like deck, bag, and pool builders. This is on it. Like it's on that top 10 list for sure of all time. I've never said that to you, and now you're getting it. You're like, I can see that little like, oh, that's very nice of you to say.
That's so kind.
That's very kind. But yeah, you're welcome. I'm very magnanimous and kind. No, but thank you for making a fun game, you jerk.
Maybe you guys can be friends sometime.
So I want to pop that in there in terms of like, I think it is really really exciting and like wholeheartely think everybody should check it out.
Nice.
This stranger here in my nook. I
cannot wait to play this. Thank you for sharing. This is our number 2, folks. How to Save a World. Let's hear what Richard's got at the top of the list this week. Richard, take it away.
Okay. Excellent choices all. Chris, Attack on Titan. I feel like you and me are the only 2 people in all of board game media that appreciate just how amazing this game is. Like I mentioned earlier, more co-op deck building, please, especially something like this that captures the anime's sense of drama and pacing and movement. I mean, you feel like you are swooping around from Titan to Titan, and also I love its brutality. This game is just mean to players, and I am there for it. My only problem with it was after Jen and I played it, we were both so impressed. I tried to show her some of the anime, and she was so grossed out that she could not go back and play the game again once she saw what those Titans are really like in motion. But yeah, I mean, this is so under the radar. More people who love deck builders, who want great cooperative experiences, should check out Attack on Titan. I completely agree. Ruel, of course, you're going to put baseball highlights on this list. I always knew that was the case. You've been raving about it forever. You might be the biggest baseball fan in all of board game media. Love your new baseball and board games live stream you're doing on your channel, by the way. For folks who are interested, you should definitely check it out. Let's see. Oh, Ray, Moonrakers. This is one I definitely want to try. Ever since Shay did a very good and enticing run-through of it with one of its expansions. I have to admit, it seems like it's best suited for higher player counts, but I really do like that dummy player they bring in that you could try to woo over to your side for the political aspect of it. And Yuval, Sid Meier's Civilization, another oldie that I would never touch with a 10-foot pole, but I think it just goes to show how incredibly versatile deck building can be. I had a cooperative 4X game driven by deck building. You've got a competitive one. I know the deck building is a smaller portion of this game, but I mean, those cards are very cool with the way that you build up your combat deck. And Helaina, How to Save a World. Now, of course, I've already covered this on the channel. I think it is phenomenal. This could have made my personal short list for this deck building fused with board game list as well. Of course, I've only played a prototype. I haven't played the final version, but both Jen and I were blown away by it. It is so good. Yuval, this is an incredible debut design for you. I mean, you're going to have a tough act to follow. I can't wait to see what you come up with next. But yeah, this makes total sense for it to be on the list too. And then finally, folks, number one, the greatest deck building game with a board, as far as I'm concerned anyway. And it is my channel, so I get final say. It's, of course, the Loop. And again, this is another example of cooperative deck building. I wonder, does just cooperative deck building work better when you actually have a board to play on? Maybe. We did have a bit of co-op gameplay when we did our top 12 pure deck building games before, but it seems like those are fewer and far between. Anyway, though, I've said it before, I'll say it again. The Loop is the best game on the market that uses the pandemic co-op formula that was not designed by Matt Leacock himself. And to me, that I cannot sing this game's praises any higher. And a big part of what makes it such a cool, fun romp trying to beat the evil Dr. Fu or Dr. Foe if you're playing the original French version like I've got, as you're jumping through time and stopping all his minions and dealing with his cool little cube tower where you never know exactly where he's going to strike, but you have a rough idea. There's so many cool ideas in this game, but probably what makes it most interesting is the deck building, because you are trying to build up a deck full of artifacts, but to get those cards, you have to actually travel around the board to end your turn in the right place to grab these and add them to your deck. But what often happens is I have to end my turn over on the other side of the map. I want that card, but I'm over here. Am I going to take this card? Because the deck building is so sharp here. It kind of borrows some of the idea of Star Realms. In Star Realms, you're always trying to get cards of the same color because they're going to combo well together. Here, you're trying to get cards of the same symbol, because after you've played all the cards you're going to play in a turn from your deck, doing standard deck building stuff, you have the opportunity to loop those cards and reactivate all cards of one symbol type that you had in your hand. That means you want to be building a deck using the same symbol over and over again so that you can have more powerful loops when you get the chance to do it. The problem is, as often as not, the card you need to get is on the other side of the board. And if you end up ending your turn on the other side of the board so you can build a stronger deck, you're not going to be fighting the minions that you need, and the board will get overrun and sections will get destroyed, and you'll face greater and greater danger. So that tension between getting the right cards at the right time to build your deck to peak efficiency while also trying to make sure you fight all the fires in the best way possible on the board makes the Loop just one of Jen's and my favorite games that have come out in years. It is so brilliant. Number one on this list, the Loop. Okay, back to you, but I'll see you in the post show because I've got a full top 10 to talk about. You've only heard 2 of mine. Let's go.
All right, the Loop. Yeah, I'll be honest, I always forget about this game when it comes to deck building. I don't know, maybe I think of it more as a board game without deck building, but Richard's totally on point here. It is a deck builder, and it's a fantastic one at that. I really enjoyed it. I have not played the expansion, but the Loop is a good choice, Richard, so well done. Folks, we are out of time here, but Did you know we do a post show? We do also a pre show as well that you can find on the extended edition. Click on the links below for that, and also click on the links below to check out the campaign for How to Save a World. Want to thank our special guest today. Want to thank our my co-host. Want to thank Richard. Want to thank you for watching. And until next time, we'll see you here on the R&R Show.
You might as well click something. Nothing else is happening here.